Okay, my name's Karl Bartlett. I'm the Get Cumbria Buzzing Project Officer. Um, I've only been with the Wildlife Trust for a matter of 4 weeks now, so I'm fairly new to the post. So I'm exploring Cumbria. I'm a Cumbrian. I've lived here for many years now, so I know the area. But I live in the middle of the Lake District, and that's what most people think of when they think of as Cumbria, is the Lake District. But actually, it's a massively diverse county. It has considerable amounts of coastline. It has considerable upland areas, obviously, as well as the lakes, and it has immense agricultural land in and around Cumbria as well. And although it's perceived of as being a very green and pleasant land, like everywhere else in Britain, wildlife here is under threat and under pressure as much as anywhere else. And so Cumbria Wildlife Trust has looked to move beyond its nature reserves into trying to do things for wildlife over the whole of Cumbria. So I'm the project manager for a thing called Get Cumbria Buzzing. And Get Cumbria Buzzing is championing the cause of pollinators, really, bees and pollinators. And I think you just have to try and imagine for a moment, if you can, putting yourself, viewing the world through the eyes of a bee. Okay, so as a bee, you're increasingly having to forage further and further afield for the food that you eat. You've got declining numbers of plants that you can forage for your food. There are less places for you to live. And if by any chance you want to meet any other bees, you're having to go further and further, fly across more and more sterile landscapes to meet those other bees. So our natural habitats are becoming increasingly fragmented, further apart, and interspersed with intensive agricultural developments, land being turned into more and more housing, and all of the human pressures on a landscape. So for bees, the outlook's pretty bleak. Cumbria Wildlife Trust back to this project called Get Cumbria Buzzing. And what we're trying to do is work to increase the resilience of what remaining wildlife we have, what sort of insect networks we have. So what we're trying to do is create a network of links between good places that are still habitat-rich places. And the way we've done that is we've adapted a thing that Plant Life did, which is called bee lines. And what they did was they mapped out the significant pollinator networks across Cumbria. And our task was to join them up, really. And so we've been working with some of the significant major landowners in and around the area, of which National Highways have been our major partner. National Highways are the people who are responsible for the major trunk roads in the country. And what they've done is worked with us to change the way that they've managed their road verges. So rather than just going down and regularly mowing, most people have a perception that roadsides should be kept looking a bit like bowling greens, really. And so we've been working with National Highways to change the way they are managed so that they're now managed much more at the end of the flowering season. So bees and all the other insects have a chance to use the flowering resources there for the whole season. They're then cut, and the material that's all the grass cuttings, etc., that's all now gathered and taken away from the site rather than just leaving it there. And what that does is over time, gradually it reduces the fertility of the piece of ground that the plants are growing on. But by reducing fertility, you actually increase the floristic abundance of a place. Instead of all coarse plants, you know, the docks, the nettles, which in themselves are good plants for wildlife, by reducing the amount of nutrients in the soil, you start to get more of the sort of the richer wildflower, the more sort of nectar-rich plants coming in. So we've been doing that, and we've been doing that for a number of years along the major trunk roads. But as I said, it's not just about the roads, it's about this little corridor, these bee lines. So we've been working with community groups, with schools, with playing field associations, you know, the sort of people who've got little bits of corners of land. And we've been getting them to actually allow their bits of there to become part of this habitat network as well. So last year we built and created a brand new wildflower nursery at our headquarters at Gosling Site. And what we've done is we've created a facility to grow 150,000 plus wildflower plugs next year. So we're in the process of massive production of wildflowers at the moment that are going to be planted out by the people involved in the roads, but also by community groups who are getting on board with us. And in May next year, we've got an event that we're calling the Big Plant, and we're getting 100 community groups to each plant 150 plants in their sort of wildflower areas, all under this banner of Get Cumbria Buzzing. So I think it really shows that small things do make a difference. And actually, we get the benefit of seeing attractive looking wildflowers, the bees get the benefits, and actually it increases the resilience of that little part of Cumbria's biodiverse network. Our work is gradually transformative, and roadside verges have shown that they are improving, but we're repairing years of damage that has occurred to these sites, and it takes time and patience. And we have to know that in 2024, the National Pollinator Strategy for England, it comes to an end. And of course, all the world this week and the next few weeks is going to be focused on COP26 and the really important issues around global warming. But it's vital that we understand that there's an inseparable link between climate change and biodiversity, that it's the same crisis. Governments still seem unable to link nature recovery in the same way that they're looking at global warming. But to all of us in the nature conservation world, every lost species, and we're losing hundreds a year, every lost species is a huge flashing warning that the natural world is falling apart. And we all depend on that natural world. And the biosphere, it's not external to human ecology. It's internal to our survival. We are all embodied in nature, and it's our common future. And it seems ironic that the wildlife trusts have just requested the governments to put in an additional £1 billion a year to wildlife recovery. Now that sounds £1 billion a year, but the National Audit Office have said the COVID crisis is going to cost us £372 billion. So that's 372 years worth of money we're asking to be putting in. Now, when you look at the impact that we've achieved and what can be achieved on nature for all of our benefits, it seems like a really small amount of money to be asking the government to put into this sort of work.